You're listening to the Fear in the Southwest podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Fear in the Southwest podcast. Hope we're all doing great. Today's episode, we're talking about one of the biggest cryptids ever to be, Bigfoot. I'm joined by Alan and my brother Kyle. What's up, guys?
Hey. What's up?
So, Bigfoot.
Bigfoot.
Oh, Bigfoot.
That's the biggest cryptid that there is in terms of just sheer amount of data and evidence, but it's still a controversial topic.
Very controversial.
Yeah.
Can't even talk right. Controversial.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fake. It's staged. It's a suit. That can't be real.
Everyone knows what Bigfoot is. What is your knowledge of Bigfoot, Kyle?
Well, I mean, he really is like the biggest cryptid ever. You can ask anybody, you could ask someone in, my age group, you could ask someone who's 70 years old, everyone's going to know who Bigfoot is when you bring them up. Whether or not they buy into it at all or believe in that sort of thing, it's that widespread that everyone has heard about it at least.
Yeah. And what are some of people's skeptical reservations about it? I mean,
well, obviously people are going to believe into the hype of, oh, it's fake, it's a suit. But, we've never seen one, it can't be real.
Yeah, if we've never shot it, or if we don't have the body, then how could it have existed? But you know what happens when an animal, like a moose, is killed in the woods? Within 2-3 days, every part will have been scattered.
Good luck finding that.
Every part. And I think that I actually have some theories about how they destroy each other's bodies after they die.
Is that an attempt to not be found?
Yes, exactly.
Well, what's your theory?
My theory?
Yeah, what's your theory? I don't know your theory on that.
We'll get into it.
We'll save that for later. Okay, so obviously Bigfoot, big cryptid, still remains one of the biggest, controversial mysteries of, is it real, is it not? And then you got people, I found Bigfoot, or that wasn't real.
Oh, they're all hoaxes because one person buys a cheap gorilla costume and puts it in a freezer and tries to sell it for $1 million. That really happened.
We just go grab a gorilla suit, throw it in the freezer, call it Bigfoot.
But they're we killed a Bigfoot and it's in the freezer. Give us $1 million and then you can see it.
$1 million to open up your freezer.
Yeah.
It looks like you got that at the party store.
It got a lot. I think a lot of it was because of it really became a craze. The interest level just spiked after the first American footprints were cast with the hairs found in the footprint. And the podiatrists talking about how it's a structurally different style, kind of foot than humans, not to mention the fact that it's huge. And so that sparked, like, they said that this is some kind of hominid, some kind of ape or primate, and it must stand upright because of the way that it's weighted down on the foot. And so they got this idea, and then people started looking. There was a huge craze for all things Bigfoot, and that's when the famous ranchers, the Patterson and Gimlin, who came up with the video, they were Bigfoot hunters, and they went out and they shot a video of Bigfoot that is the most controversial cryptid video of all time. Right.
Why is it controversial?
Well, because they say absolutely. The one guy says he made it. It was a hoax, and he made the suit. no, he's never done it again. No, he has no intention to. And no, he can't prove it. And just anyone saying that that's obviously a man in a suit. That's obviously what that is. But I mean, they've gone into that video with doctors to try and disprove or prove, like, if it's a person in the suit or not, and a human being would be physically incapable of moving that way. Yeah.
Well, that would make it controversial.
The arms are fixed to the spine. It moves its torso when it moves its whole torso when it needs to turn.
Yeah, it turns the whole. That's
But
right.
I know I've heard the guy Stan Winston, who the greatest like creature effects person of all time. I mean, he did the Terminator effects, and someone asked him like, "Is this a guy in a suit?" And he said, even I'm not that good. And think about it, that video, that was taken a year before Planet of the Apes came out in theaters. And that figure is way more realistic than the apes in that. It looks way better. Yeah.
Interesting. Kind of funny, Planet Apes right afterwards.
Yeah.
Hey guys, know what you're doing there? All
And
right.
after that video, it was even more of a craze. If there weren't enough kooks, to try and disprove something, there would be now.
There's what groups, just massive groups of Bigfoot hunters.
Oh, absolutely. There's television shows.
Yeah, I'm gonna say with Finding Bigfoot, and I've seen other spin-offs. I've seen YouTubes. I've seen articles, and then I remember reading about a guy who claims he found it, and like scientists are analyzing it, and then like nothing comes of it. Like it just disappears. Like government.
Yeah. Like
Where did it go?
Clamps down on it.
Like
Try and hide the existence.
maybe it is real. Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
So, while we're on, historic videos and claims, has there been actual, what you would think would be factual, like, findings in, like, history that, would ring, like, hey, this may be a real thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of data out there. There's a lot of mythology and lore out there talking about the Bigfoot or Sasquatch or whatever you call them in different areas. There's hundreds of names. I mean, we got the Gigantopithecus, Bigfoot, and Sasquatch from the Pacific Northwest, the Yeti from the Himalayas, the Yowie from Australia, and Almas in Mongolia. I mean, in Florida we have the skunk ape.
Wait, the skunk ape?
Yeah, it seems to be around 5.5 feet tall, big red ape thing, and it smells to high heaven because it lives in the swamp, and it's covered in long fur, and they said you can't get even close to it without gagging.
Oh, that gives it its name.
Yeah, it's Florida's half-assed approach at a fucking Bigfoot.
It's a swamp monster.
Yeah. It's like Bigfoot, with stunted growth, it just does freaking acid all the time. That's a skunk ape. He's freaking weird.
What other weird names you got?
Well, Grassman, the Ohio Grassman, yeah.
Grassman.
Wendigo, a lot of people say, some of these can be called other things. In mythology, Wendigo is a monstrous man, tall, lumbering, like killer. After they cannibalize, they're forced to cannibalize people who eat their family in a cold winter, or get stuck in the snow and eat the frozen bodies or whatever. Yeah, they would become a Wendigo. But then the description matches all the rest. Except for skunk ape, he's weird. Yeren, that's from China, apparently. In the Mogollon Rim, just close to us in Arizona, we got Mogi.
Mogi.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a Disney character.
Albetwiche, Susquehannock people from from Ontario.
Some of these
Barmanu from Pakistan. Sirakawa from northern Mexico. The Yuri from Wales.
Wait, did you say Yuri from Wales?
Yeah.
That sounds like this is Yuri from Wales.
Yakaka.
I'll
give you a minute.
Is that another stinky?
That's from Japan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Quinken, that's from the Aboriginal Australia. Same with the Yaroma, and the Yowie too. Come to think of it, Watiko, those were from like Eastern Africa. We got the Wijido Kawak from northwestern United States. We got Pongo we got Nun Yun Wee from Vietnam. Mande Barung from India. Everywhere.
It's pretty.
Gugu, that's Sumatra. They have the most ridiculous names. Chi Chi. Also
Chi-Chi.
from China.
Chi-Chi from China.
Kushtaka, I think that's from Korea. Yeah, there's so many of them. Kukwes, Gao Gao, Jenu, Kiwakwi, All Micmac, Catamount, the Chickley, Whistling Patty, the Gidget Haida, Sonoqua, the Yellers, Screamin' Jack, Howlers, Boogerman, and Orang Pendek from Sumatra as well.
The list goes on.
Yeah, it just goes on, and I could read these for like days. That's why it's not something that has gone under the radar. It's something that's.
Sorry, I'm over here laughing. I just read a random. We were talking about hoaxes earlier, with fake or real. I just read in August 2012, a man in Montana was killed by a car while perpetrating a Bigfoot hoax while wearing a ghillie suit. I ran into that in the middle of that conversation. Right? I'm like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
And sad.
But that's it. That's it. You shine a flashlight on anything, and people are going to. It's just weird. Those people.
Montana. Nothing up to do,
Montana.
Montana.
He should have known that person wasn't going to mess around. That it was going to run him over. What would you do? Bigfoot.
Montana, come on.
Bigfoot. Yeah, it's Montana. He's lucky he didn't get shot to pieces.
You got hit by a car. It says a car, but what if it was like a big truck?
Yeah. This guy was not a very big Bigfoot, probably.
Maybe it was a little Bigfoot. Clearly.
There are some of those. I've been reading. There are like midget Bigfoots.
Midget Bigfoots.
And there's some crazy
midget Bigfoots.
One of my favorite arguments about in support of Bigfoot is just to say this isn't just a bunch of hype that came out of the 60s from that video and that footprint. These go back in history. Even in this country, as early as 1818. One of them.
Little Bigfoot. Well, I've heard Little Bighorn, but Little Bigfoot.
Yeah, well, that happened. That happened. I was reading a story about it. A historical encounter from a newspaper on the 4th of July, 1884, where these five train workers were decided to go to scale the cliffs of the mountain that they were like mining, and they went to explore it, and they ended up finding and kidnapping essentially a little 3.5 foot tall kind of Bigfoot. They took it, what they think is a child, like a child of a family of them, you know, and they named it Jocko. It matches the description of like Australopithecus, and I mean like even it ended up having a pretty miserable existence, and it ended up like on a freak show of P.T. Barnum's.
I was about to say, did it
Jojo
end up in some, like,
the dog-faced boy?
I was about to say, did it turn up Jocko was in like a freak circus carnival?
Yeah.
Like he was
He ended up that way, yeah.
Oh man, welcome to Jocko's modern life.
Oh man, that was a double knee slapper you got there. Okay. Yeah, but and that's sort of what Australopithecus, like early man, looked like as well. The first of us. We were very, very small.
Little Bigfoot. Jocko.
Oh, there's this
Jocko
one.
the Little Bigfoot.
This guy, Albert Ostman, a Canadian lumberjack in 1924. He goes on a camping trip to like the Toba Inlet. And in the middle of the night, while he's asleep, he gets picked up in his own sleeping bag and slung over the shoulder of a Bigfoot. And he ends up getting carried in his own sleeping bag for like 3 hours, he says, before he's sort of put down and collect himself in this valley. And he was like staring up at like dozens of this Sasquatch, and they didn't really do much to try and kill him after that, you know. He ended up leaving, getting taken back to the same place, but they caught him, and then he ended up leaving again. And he got away, and that was his story. How he fucking almost
I got abducted by Sasquatch and escaped.
So many of them.
Sorry guys, this is before camera phones.
That's absolutely insane, right? There's
I just can imagine going camping, getting in your sleeping bag, and next thing you know, you're being picked up and carried to a family of Bigfoots. And then get out of your sleeping bag like, what?
Yeah.
What is going on here?
Yeah, I would be so terrified of what's gonna come next after they just set him down. You know.
Okay, they set me down. There's a lot of them now. What do I do?
If they just wanted to eat him or something, I would think it would just swing the bag at a tree a few times. Tenderize.
Do I become a Bigfoot pinata?
Yeah. Big bag full of human.
Oh man. Oh, Bigfoot.
I mean, what's you? But that's also that's another thing, that the nature and demeanor of these animals are different in a lot of these different cultures. Some of them, they are sort of like they speak of them in reverent tones, and other times, like the Yowies, they talk about how they're incredibly dangerous, that they're really tall, that they're red-haired, and they have giant like beards. but those descriptions can get to be like 14 feet tall, they said.
So Bigfoot. There's a lot of historical encounters, and I know we've been looking into some. Well, what are some of the biggest ones that we can name?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, we talked about the different names we have, and we'll get into like good and bad historical encounters. But I mean, just a little bit back in history, in medieval Europe, they were probably most likely called werewolves or wild man of the woods, which were both common terms. An ancient philosopher, Herodotus, wrote that giant hairy wild men and women inhabited the densely forested areas of Libya. So that's some historical information right there. But we found some very entertaining articles and whatnot of some historical encounters in the U.S. Right. I mean, we have just after the Civil War in northern Maine, two hunters decided to go camping, up country, and they camped in the woods. And in the middle of the night, what they heard like roaring sounds from all around them, but eventually it subsided, and one of them decided to stay. He didn't sleep and decided to stay back at the camp when the other person went to go fishing. And when the person at the lake came back, his friend was dead in a bad way. He was crushed. He was absolutely demolished. And he ended up seeing what he said was a monster, and he ended up running off, leaving his dead friend. And he went back to the town, and they got all the men together as a posse, and they went back into the woods, and they found this giant blood-soaked 10-foot hairy ape man with 8-foot arms, and they ended up having a violent battle with it, in which they shot it to pieces and killed it in revenge.
Dang.
And that comes from a Maine newspaper. There's in Oregon, a little bit after that. Actually, a good 30 years before that, in Oregon, there's what they call the Oregon Bigfoot Massacre.
Oregon Bigfoot Massacre.
Yeah.
Was this like a newspaper?
Yeah, this was a newspaper article, but basically, these homesteaders in Oregon started having on like all of the places near the woods. They started having their wild they started having animals go missing, livestock, pets. And eventually they started coming for the children and coming further into the village, and until enough children had gone missing, and it was a lot. They said a lot of kids had gone missing, and they ended up finally having enough men that they could literally walk through they could walk through in just the woods and not miss anything. And they ended up finding following a horrific smell, like decomposition and shit.
Like bad smell.
Bad, yeah. And they followed it to these giant mounds. These giant mounds that just had soft grass on top, but on beside the mounds were discarded children parts.
Oh.
And in various stages of decomposition, and enough shit for a lot of these things.
Oh.
And they came across these this horrific find, and they literally went straight through with their rifles and killed every one of them. And they said that there was tens of these things, all of which were massive.
And they were feeding off for children.
They were eating children and other animals. Anything that they had eaten horses.
Sounds savage.
Yeah.
Savage. Now, did they know any credibility on that, or?
This was a newspaper article. So I mean, and then since then it's been made even crazier by other people telling. But yeah, this is the newspaper article. Yeah.
Dang, Oregon Bigfoot massacre.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing. Some of these different regional subspecies or different names. These different Bigfoots from all around the world. They have completely different descriptions a lot of times, and that goes for their behavior too. They have ones that are super violent and seem to actively pursue aggressive, like the Yowies are described that way. The Yeti from the Himalayas, those are described that way. And there are a lot of Squatch can be very dangerous because they stalk elk paths, and these things are big and strong enough to grab an elk around the neck and break its neck. They're strong enough to do that with an elk that doesn't want them to. So yeah, I think everyone should proceed with a little caution, and definitely give the thing some space if you don't want to test it. That's what they've shown that they want, right?
They want their own space.
Yeah.
Leave them alone.
But yeah, I mean,
what other historical encounters do we got?
well, there's just thinking about it. One of the most famous is like the Dyatlov Pass incident.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Is that the one there's images and they're in the snow, bodies just everywhere, scattered and destroyed?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This group of students on a an educational trip. They were on a trip together. I think there was 6 of them, and they ended up having this plan for like a 5-day trek, and the trek would take them through some wooded areas, and then eventually over this over the pass, the Dyatlov Pass, the Siberian mountain pass, and these were students from a university. They're not locals. They came here to do that, right? To do that project.
For that specific project,
and they didn't know. They didn't know what the locals did. So the locals told them, they said that the pass is like you can't go over it. It's called the Mountain of the Dead. I mean, this is a movie, right?
Yeah,
it sounds like a movie.
horror movie.
Yeah.
The Mountain of the Dead.
Yeah, Mountain of the Dead, and that the spirits of the mountain, the Mank, would kill them if they went over the pass, the Pass of the Dead. Ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But they ended up dying in pretty horrific ways, And they left behind, just like a horror movie, they left behind a camera with some very interesting photos. And one of the photos shows one of these, what appears to be a Bigfoot, like looking from behind a tree, but very clear. And another one doing the same thing for a little bit further away. And yeah, those.
Guys, look up those images on the internet. I think they're there.
Yeah, it's
For our
horrendous.
audience
It's
who's curious
horrific.
what we're talking about, but be warned. Obviously, the photos are open for skepticism, but it's brutal.
Yeah, yeah. These people were crushed. Some of them had their eyes and tongues ripped out. These people were demolished.
Literally.
Yeah, and we found this in this story left behind, and that wasn't enough for the Russian government or the United States, and they ended up having a it was a dual agency like investigation called Project Iceman.
Project Iceman.
Yeah.
I feel like we've heard this before.
Yeah. Project Iceman. Look it up. That's one of the most famous. That's one of the most famous, I think. The historical encounters.
Yeah, y'all have to look that up. What is it called again for the audience?
The Dyatlov Pass Incident.
Yeah, y'all check that out. Look at the images. Let us know what you think. Feel free to leave a voicemail on the podcast and let us know what you think. You guys look at the images. What's your all's perspective on it? We would like to know. That's got to be one of the biggest ones. Now, in your opinion, Alan, what do you feel out of the ones we've talked about to be the most credible and like believable? Like, there's no doubt in your mind that Bigfoot exists.
I would say, well, it's either when I realized that just thousands of years ago, that the Gigantopithecus lived right alongside humans, and spread out just like humans did, in my opinion. That's how they ended up all around the planet. Then I think all the pieces started falling into place for me,
What about you, Kyle?
I think from an analytical standpoint, it's not so hard to believe that this is just another animal, and most of the skepticism, regardless of someone is a skeptic or they have reasonable doubt, there's just a stigma there because of all the hype behind the hoaxes and.
Yeah, but I mean, think about a cryptid from not too long ago, the giant squid. There were historical encounters, tons, from everyone, but that they didn't exist. That's silly. Those don't exist until finally you get an image of one, and just 5 years later you find that you prove the existence of the colossal squid, the giant octopus.
So
All these things that were completely laughable
until it was proven otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the public tends to follow the hype of the hoax a lot. Like, that it definitely can't be real. Like, that was a hoax. Like, it's so much easier for them to
ridicule it.
Ridicule the hoax and like, it's definitely fake. They don't really break it down to, well, there's actually actual possibility that it exists. And it's like we were talking about earlier, Bigfoot obviously wants to be left alone. I think the reason
they've only survived this long because they've stayed the fuck away.
They don't want to be.
But I mean, we're encroaching. We are encroaching.
Yeah, so. But it's like us being human, typical curiosity, we want to know more. Is kind of what's putting us in harm's way. But like those pictures of that one incident we were just talking about. Yeah, I saw the images and I'm like,
The Dyatlov.
yes, it's brutal. It's just absolutely brutal.
You don't understand how someone could. I mean, they have horrific contorted faces. Just they're broken, crushed bodies.
It looks like a scene from a horror movie.
Yes.
Now,
and all that they left behind was a plan and some recordings of themselves being scared. And
now, how did they get the images if they're all dismantled?
the camera, one of them had a camera on them, like a large camera, and they took that picture of the men coming from behind the tree
Right before they got.
shortly. Yeah, I mean that's a famous image. I'll pull it up for you. The audience can't see it, but they can look it up. Let's see, Dyatlov.
I just think a lot of skepticism comes from people having their own reservations and being set in their beliefs, but I just think from an analytical standpoint, you can't deny the science that this creature could easily be a step between an ape and a Neanderthal, or in other words, some sort of, we could have descended from this creature.
Yeah.
And with all the history that man has with it, all these historical sightings, and all the different, places and adaptations this animal could take on. We have ones that are, 3 to 5 feet tall and ones that are absolutely massive.
Yeah.
They take on different names from different regions of the world because they look and act differently. But
same way that a bear does in different parts of the world.
Different
every
subtypes.
subspecies of brown bear.
Yeah.
If you think about the possibility that this could be the closest, missing link to man, is it so hard to believe that this creature's
one of the stories
almost as evolved as we are, and in that regard, they're aware of man, and so they steer clear because they're smart enough to live on their own and be secluded and hide away from man because
And know not how to get found.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't want to get found.
Yeah.
And
But
I
I mean,
think
the
that's a
odds-
survival technique for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now,
They can be pretty much invisible when they want to be. I think a lot of that is their ability to climb.
I was just about to say they're good climbers. Now, in what aspects do they go as far as to protecting their not getting found? Like if one dies, that they purposely dispose of the body, like to the point where it's not found, like eat it, destroy it, like.
Yeah, but because it's one thing, one thing that's shown in almost all the different names of Sasquatch. One thing that they've always shown that they do is they butcher their own meat when they do it. They're like the Yowies in Australia. I've seen a eyewitness say that they saw this giant figure grabbing a couple of goats, like one under each arm, and leaving, and he ended up getting his gun and going to like investigate, and he ended up just seeing a bunch of blood on the ground, and then realized that the goats had already been split open, dressed out, and thrown over a tree branch, to get all the bad stuff out. And that's what he saw, and that's what he looked up and he saw one of the trees start to look at him.
The tree's looking at me.
Yeah, so he freaked out, and after that I think he went into a trailer and it like smashed something in his yard. But I mean, yeah, they've shown their ability to butcher and to
stay secluded.
Yeah. They can get rid of the body very easily with these tools, with these.
I think that's a survival factor on their part, is not leaving a trace, staying secluded. I for one believe like that Bigfoot exists. I mean, I'm kind of always been like a skeptic with that because there's been a lot of hit or miss with that, but in regards to as like a whole,
Not every story is even close to true. But I think that there's a lot of amazing data to prove that we've lived alongside these things for our entire rule of this earth. They've been around for the same amount of time, and I don't think there are so many of them, but I think they're pretty well spread from after from what they had to do to survive after the Ice Age. And I think that's what the Gigantopithecus probably had to do, had to leave China at that point and spread out. And they managed to do so. They managed to get from Australia to Toronto,
Straight to Toronto.
They're on every continent except Antarctica. Unless there's a Bigfoot eating penguins.
It's another type of Yeti.
I think these days we get new amazing evidence all the time. I just recently saw some great thermal video of several of the Sasquatch like high in trees, just suspending from these trees like it's easy. Like that's the kind of strength they have to hold on with one arm.
They can just do that. What do you think it's going to take as society in general? Which would say like everyone. What kind of evidence do you think it's going to take to solidify like their existence? Like it's no longer a mystery. To validate their existence, like with no questions, no doubts.
I think I don't know, I'd say it would take a body, but people don't even believe that. I mean, they don't believe that all the time. It would take the body being in perfect condition and studied at the right place with the right people, because they could attack anything, right?
Yeah. I'm maybe it's like you have to experience it for yourself, like see it for yourself.
But some of those skeptics, they would rather sort of plug their ears because than actually acknowledge anything. Yeah,
makes sense. I mean,
I think it's easier for them to be just sort of.
If they can brush it off, then it's much like that wasn't Bigfoot. Mm. Nah, that was another guy in a suit.
Yeah, people have been hoaxing. People have hoaxed ghosts. People have hoaxed everything.
Werewolves.
Yeah. But
Bigfoot, Sasquatch.
But this isn't like a prank here. This isn't a prank that people have just been doing for 400 years.
It's got to have a root. Every prank's got a root.
Yeah, I mean every Native American tribe in the North Woods area had a different name for them, in different relationships with them. The Aboriginals have 5 different names for them.
You're looking at very, very much a variety of culture of people who all describing
the same thing without any knowledge of one another.
Exactly. So, I mean, that in itself says a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we have hairs. We have hairs. We have things. We have DNA. We just it's sort of like corrupt. I mean, I think what I wonder is if we'd be able to clone this. I mean, we're trying to clone the woolly rhinos and the mammoth, the steppe mammoth, and American cheetah, all these different animals.
Recreate a Bigfoot.
Like a different Gigantopithecus.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me that if the Bigfoot we see isn't Gigantopithecus, it is the next thing from Gigantopithecus. But it seems that they're a little bit closer to us in the way that they move.
Fascinating. So, audience, what do you think? Bigfoot real? Bigfoot not real? Or are you right in between? Still not enough to solidify their existence? Tell us what you think.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good discussion. Very, very interesting topics.
Alright, y'all. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for joining us.